Soon after, Zhao Yu brought Si Wuya to the eastern pavilion. Si Wuya's mental state was visibly better than it was a few days ago. He opened the doors carefully and walked in while Zhao Yu waited outside. When he entered the study, he saw Lu Zhou sitting on a rush cushion with his eyes closed. He called out softly, "Master." Lu Zhou slowly opened his eyes before he looked at Si Wuya and said, "Sit." "I dare not, master." "Speak, then," Lu Zhou said. Si Wuya nodded and said, "I've been reflecting inside the cave of reflection over the past few days. I've been thinking about the memory crystals as well. I have a feeling the crystal is in Rongxi instead of Rongbei." "Why would you say that?" Lu Zhou asked. "After you sealed your memories, master, you went to Rongxi. There are 5 nations in Rongxi: Qigong Nation, Wushan Nation, Sushan Nation, Chonggu Nation, and Lulan. Many other tribesmen dwelled in the 5 nations. They believe and worship evil monsters. After you returned from sealing your memories, we were attacked by the elites from the 10 great sects. For them to plan the siege, they must know about your movements in detail. In my opinion, Lulan is the only one with the motives and strength to pull it off." Lulan? Lu Zhou was puzzled. When he first transmigrated here, he had always thought the troubles were caused by the rascals, especially Yu Zhengai. Now that he heard Si Wuya's words, he thought it was believable. Si Wuya continued to say, "Second senior brother once killed a royal consort in the western regions. Do you know why, master?" Lu Zhou glanced at him with a slight frown on his face. His expression clearly said, "Are you trying to be funny, you rascal?" Si Wuya was so startled that he hastily said, "The royal consort was a grand shaman. She had her eyes on second senior brother and wanted to control him." Second senior brother was not fooled. After killing the royal consort, the imperial family had to accept consort Yu into the palace to establish an alliance by marriage. Consort Yu is immortal, but she brought Mo Li, who had wanted to plunge Great Yan into chaos. Alas, the evil sky pavilion stood in her way. Lu Zhou nodded. "What you're saying is that Lu Lan is the one that's plotting against me." "Most likely so," Si Wuya replied. "What does this have to do with the memory crystals?" Si Wuya said, "Since the people of Lu Lan know about your movements so well, I'm sure they know where you've been in Rongxi. If we can retrace your steps back then, perhaps we can find the memory crystal." Lu Zhou stroked his beard and pondered on Si Wuya's words. This rascal had a point. However, how were they supposed to go about doing this? Si Wuya seemed to have foreseen this. He said, "Master, I've also planted some of my own men in the other tribes, especially in Lulan." Lu Zhou looked at Si Wuya again. He noticed that Si Wuya's loyalty was higher than before. However, it was still not very high. "Master, I'm the only one who can do this. Although Zhang Aizhen is the 3rd prince and has many sources, he doesn't understand the other tribes well enough. Moreover, Zhang Aizhen is unfettered and indolent in nature. He won't pay attention to much information. In the past, I've notified the evil sky pavilion of many pieces of information under the Darknet's name. Zhang Aizhen could have done that if he only. Zhang Aizhen can be trusted." At this juncture, Si Wuya fell silent immediately. He noticed his master's intent gaze and he shuddered inwardly. He fell to one knee and hastily said, "It's not my intention to slander Zhang Aizhen. Please forgive me, master." Lu Zhou stroked his beard and nodded. "Do you know why I wanted you to reflect on your actions in the cave of reflection? I know that my act of treason can never be forgiven. I have no complaints, no matter the punishment," Si Wuya replied. "You're wrong. It was clearly unreasonable to punish Si Wuya this severely just because he had defected in the past. After all, he had kneeled outside the Heaven Choice Temple for 3 days and 3 nights to save Zhu Honggong. Moreover, to save Yu Shangrong, he scoured Great Yan in search of runes. In his personal diary, it was clearly documented how he had saved Yu Zhengai. If Lu Zhou continued to blame him after all discovering these things, it would be clear that Lu Zhou was intentionally being obtuse." Lu Zhou continued to say, "You're just like Yu Shangrong. You have much unneeded pride. Pride? You can be confident, but being overconfident makes you conceited. Pride will often cloud your eyes," Lu Zhou said. Si Wuya was stunned. He remembered the pile of paper inside the cave of reflection. He felt his cheeks burn. He prided himself in being intelligent and being able to come up with strategic plans. However, he could not solve a single one of those questions. In the end, he said, "You're right, master. I understand now." Lu Zhou walked to the nearest chair and sat down. He said, "Up until now, you still won't reveal what happened to Yu Zhengai." Si Wuya shuddered. "I've made a promise to eldest senior brother." Lu Zhou frowned slightly when he saw Si Wuya's determination. Si Wuya claimed that he had been reflecting, and yet, he still remained stubborn. Lu Zhou's expression was stern as he said in a deep voice, "Fine. If you insist on not revealing the truth to me, you're now banished from the pavilion. From this day on, you no longer have any ties with the evil sky pavilion. I'll return the peacock plume to you." Lu Zhou flipped his right hand, and the peacock plume appeared above his palm. He did not hesitate as he tossed it over to Si Wuya. Si Wuya was as still as a wooden chicken. Lu Zhou looked at Si Wuya with his keen eyes, waiting for Si Wuya's answer. You can leave whenever you want. If we meet again as enemies, don't expect me to show any mercy. Quote. Lu Zhou would never believe in Si Wuya's determination to keep his promises. If you can betray your own master, wouldn't I be foolish to believe that you'll keep your promise to Yu Zhengai? What a joke. Si Wuya looked at the peacock plume with a stunned expression. His mind was completely blank at this moment. Ding! Instructed Si Wuya. Reward, 500 merit points. This time, both of Si Wuya's knees were on the ground. He prostrated himself and said, I'll tell you what I know, but you must promise me one thing, master. You're trying to negotiate with me? Si Wuya hastily said. I have no intention of being disobedient, master, nor am I bold enough to negotiate with you. Aren't you trying to negotiate now? Lu Zhou stared at Si Wuya with blazing eyes. Si Wuya felt extremely awkward. All his confidence and composure seemed to vanish under his master's eyes. He was extremely flustered. For a time, he was at a loss for words. Lu Zhou produced Si Wuya's diary from his sleeve. After reading it, he placed it on the table. The room was extremely quiet now. The master and disciple, one seated, the other kneeling. After a long pause, Lu Zhou said, Do you think there's no way I'd find out about it just because you refused to tell me? Si Wuya looked up at Lu Zhou and said in shock. You knew? The people of Wuqi, upon their deaths, provided that their hearts remain intact, can be resurrected if they're buried and watered. Quote. Si Wuya's eyes widened. He looked at his diary on the table. The records were too obvious. It was difficult to not notice them. In the end, his master had found out about it. He prostrated himself again. He said in a hoarse voice, Eldest senior brother has had a tough life. Him? Lu Zhou appeared skeptical. Yu Zhengai had founded the Nether sect and assimilated other factions to his sect everywhere he went. His 4 great protectors were valiant warriors. Now that the fiend path was practically under his control, he traveled in his flying chariot to establish his dominance daily. He attacked cities and conquered lands. How is this a tough life? The appearance of Si Wuya's diary shattered his defenses and arguments. Lu Zhou had thought long and hard after obtaining the diary. Sometimes his mind would wander to it while he meditated on the heavenly writing scrolls. What kind of person could return from the dead? Even a person such as Yun Tinluo could not come back to life even with the help of the mysterious Luo woman. How did Yu Zhengai manage that? In truth, even if he could not find the answer from his memories, he could still find it in the books. Watering them to bring them back to life. This sentence was too obvious of a clue. Si Wuya remained kneeling as he slowly said, Several hundred years ago, the Wuqin once lived inside Great Yan. When the war broke out, the Wuqin had to migrate elsewhere. They traveled from Yang province in the easternmost region to Liang province in the westernmost region. All was well, in the beginning. Si Wuya continued to say, the Wuqin were caught in the crossfire of the war between Great Yan and Lulan. They were nearly wiped out. Only 3 tribesmen survived. Eldest senior brother was one of them. They were still young back then. They had to beg for a living and sleep on the streets. They were beaten, cursed at, and scorned. Eldest senior brother often stole food for his fellow comrades. Eldest senior brother is unyielding and stubborn in nature. Sometimes he wouldn't even bow his head after a beating. Lu Zhou had experienced this firsthand. Yu Zhenggai's temperament could simply be described as being stubborn. It was nearly impossible to change Yu Zhenggai's mind once he had made up his mind. Then, 2 out of the 3 were beaten to death. Eldest senior brother was sold off by some traffickers to Lulan. Si Wuya paused at this moment. He looked up slightly, trying to gauge Lu Zhou's expression. He discovered Lu Zhou's expression was the usual. He could not figure out what Lu Zhou was thinking. When Si Wuya paused, Lu Zhou asked, why didn't the Wuqin come back to life after their deaths? It's difficult for ordinary Wuqin to achieve that. The conditions for it to happen are strict. Wuqin who started cultivating would also need to be looked after by someone else. Besides, Wuqin can only be resurrected thrice. Every time they die, they would lose 300 years of their lives. Now that eldest senior brother is a peak 8-leaf cultivator, he's supposed to have 1,000 years of life. Unfortunately, Si Wuya trailed off. Lu Zhou was deep in thought. He understood the situation. If the Wuqin could be resurrected without limits, they would be immortal. Was there not a single person in the vast cultivation world who broke free from these shackles? Continue, Lu Zhou said. Eldest senior brother thought that life would be easier once he was in Lulan. However, not only did it become worse, but he did not even get a good night's rest. An aristocrat in Lulan loathed Great Yan. In search of pleasure, he bound eldest senior brother, gouged, and cut him with a knife every day. Every cut caused eldest senior brother excruciating pain. This went on for 7 days before he eventually bled to death. At this point, Si Wuya clenched his fists and his knuckles whitened. His emotions were clearly agitated as he continued to say, perhaps the heavens pitied eldest senior brother and didn't think his time was up. Coincidentally, he was dumped into a muddy pool and remained there for 49 days. After he came back to life, he followed a caravan from Lulan and headed east, back to Lulan. Then, he officially became your disciple, master. When Si Wuya finished speaking, he remained on his knees. However, his back was ramrod straight. Then, he said, I'm willing to help eldest senior brother conquer the world. I've never regretted this nor will I ever regret it. After hearing what Si Wuya had to say, Lu Zhou's thoughts were complicated. His mind was filled with thoughts about Yu Zhengai and Yu Shangrong's past. Whether it was the Fairfolk, the nobleman nation, or the Wuqin, they were all related to the longevity of life. According to what his disciples had said, if Ji Tiandao truly wanted to use his disciples to attain the 9-leaf stage or obtain longevity, why did he not do it? His 9 disciples should have ended up becoming sacrifices after all. What happened in between? Lu Zhou glanced at the diary. He asked, how do you explain this diary? That's why I'm begging you, master, please spare eldest senior brother this once. What's recorded in the diary happened when eldest senior brother had just entered the 8-leaf stage. It was his second death, Si Wuya said. Second death? Since Yu Zhengai had joined the evil sky pavilion, he had begun cultivating. With his cultivation base and strength, how could he have died so easily? I'm afraid you're the only one who knows the reason for that, master, Si Wuya said. Lu Zhou frowned. He stood up, placed his hands behind his back, and began pacing. If he knew the reason, there would not be so much trouble now. After carefully searching through his memories, he found nothing. Oh, Ji Tiandao. Did you really seal your memories of you killing your disciples? Although Lu Zhou was only a transmigrator, and these things had nothing to do with him, he was now playing the role of Ji Tiandao. He was destined to be unable to break free from this. You suspect that I killed Yu Zhengai? Lu Zhou asked. If this had been brought up when he had just transmigrated here, Lu Zhou would have suspected that Ji Tiandao had killed Yu Zhengai as well. However, it seemed to him now that there was more than meets the eye. Ji Tiandao's fiery temper aside, from the fragments of memories he did not think Ji Tiandao was a cruel and heartless person. The term fiend path was nothing more than an umbrella term given by individuals from the opposing faction. I dare not, Si Wuya continued, I'm willing to look for the memory crystal. Previously, Si Wuya would never agree to search for the memory crystal. Now that his master was at the 9-leaf stage, those worries no longer existed. Listen here, Si Wuya. Lu Zhou raised his voice. Yes, master, I'm giving you 2 missions. The first one is to search for the memory crystal. The second one is to persuade Yu Zhengai to return, Lu Zhou said imposingly. Si Wuya kowtowed and said, yes, master. However what? I have no questions about the first mission, but eldest senior brother can be stubborn. I'm afraid. Si Wuya wore a helpless expression on his face. Si Wuya had expected Lu Zhou to insist on him completing the mission, but Lu Zhou only said, I'll leave it to you. That will be all. You'll leave it to me? Si Wuya was stunned. However, when he saw his master walking toward the rush cushion, he no longer dared to stay any longer. He rose to his feet and said, I'll take my leave now, master. Look for Pan Zhang to restore your cultivation base. Take the peacock plume with you. Thank you, master. Si Wuya was overjoyed. He picked up his peacock plume and retreated reverently from the room. Lu Zhou turned around and was about to meditate on the heavenly writing scrolls when he looked up and saw the words on his wall. Is there such a coincidence under the heavens? If it's true, does this mean I have another disciple? Someone with the name Shi? Meanwhile, in a certain restaurant in Runan City, Zhang Aizhen scratched his head and wondered, a woman with the surname Luo? This must be a joke. Old villain Ji really thinks that I can do anything. Zhang Aizhen stroked his chin. Although there's nothing I can't do, this isn't how I'm supposed to be treated. He grabbed a waiter who was passing by and asked, excuse me. Do you know where I can find a woman with the surname Luo? The waiter was taken aback by this treatment. Dear customer, why you should look for her yourself. Inwardly, he muttered to himself, this man has a few screws loose. Zhang Aizhen pushed him away and said, the surname Luo. A person who helped Yun Tinluo reached the highest level with a single step. Why doesn't any of this feel real to me? Forget it, I'll just start searching randomly then. Zhang Aizhen leapt out of the restaurant and vanished with a flurry of movements. Dozens of miles north from the Koryang sect, Yu Shangrong rode on Bayan. It was flying slowly. He was enjoying the scenery. It put him in a good mood. Bayan suddenly cried out. Yu Shangrong was puzzled. Up ahead? Yu Shangrong saw a forest. Black smoke was rising as though something had caught fire. Let's avoid it. Bayan adjusted its direction and skirted the forest. The skies above them were shrouded with smoke. Poison? Yu Shangrong frowned slightly. His instincts told him that the black smoke was not as simple as it seemed. He steered Bayan and flew low. At this moment, a peculiar voice rang from the forest. Why don't you come down and have a talk, my friend? Yu Shangrong appeared calm. He had expected that someone would stand in his way. The black cloud of smoke was clearly meant to stop him. Just as well. Yu Shangrong brought Bai into a slow descent. 3 people walked out of the forest. One of them was lavishly dressed with a sparse mustache. He stood in the lead as he said, my friend, I'd like to buy something off you. What is it? The lotus severing survival pills. At this moment, the lavishly dressed man waved his hand. The other 2 brought out their riches and packed them before they handed the bundle of riches to him. Cultivators were never attracted by materialistic items. Are you certain that you want to buy them? Yu Shangrong smiled faintly. Naturally. You can think of this as a robbery as well, the lavishly dressed man said as he returned Yu Shangrong's smile. The Core Yang sect is protected by a barrier. We've caught quite a number of their customers. However, this is our first time seeing one on a mount. Yu Shangrong nodded. You can use witchcraft. Are you from Lulan or Roli? The lavishly dressed man was slightly taken aback by Yu Shangrong's words. He said, you have a keen eye, my friend. Since Great Yan has entered the Lotus Severing era, we, Rulians, naturally, can't lag behind. So, they're from Roli. After thinking about it, Yu Shangrong found this normal. Great Yan's cultivators were now severing their lotuses. When there were enough 9-leaf cultivators, that would be the day where the other tribes were going to be exterminated. Rongxi and Rongbei would not let this opportunity slip through their fingers. It was only natural for them to send scouts here. Rulians. Yu Shangrong maintained his smile. My sword never kills those without a name. You're proud, alas, it's ill-placed. The lavishly dressed man waved his hand. The 2 others removed their clothes, revealing their sculpted bodies. Their skin was covered in densely packed runes. They seemed strange and ostentatious. Well, they were other tribesmen, after all. Whiz, whiz, 2 Wolf King avatars appeared. Yu Shangrong glanced at them. They were both 2-leaf golden lotus avatars. The golden lotus could be used as a means to attack and defend. If the lotus, which possessed considerable defensive strength, was used well, a 2-leaf golden lotus avatar was, theoretically, much superior to a 2-leaf avatar without a golden lotus. Alas, Yu Shangrong was not one who could be defined by theory alone. Yu Shangrong did not expect to run into other tribesmen here. The 2 Rulians charged at him. With their Wolf King avatars, their strength and agility were rather shocking. Whoosh! The 2 Wolf King avatars leapt and lunged at Yu Shangrong in unison. Yu Shangrong remained unruffled as he patted Baiyan's body and said, move to the side. I'm worried that I might hurt you. Our. A seemingly unwilling and disdainful expression appeared on Baiyan's face, but it did as it was told. With great reluctance, it took several steps back. When the 2 avatars were descending on Yu Shangrong, zing! Yu Shangrong unsheathed his longevity sword. It glowed brilliantly with a scarlet light. With his sword in hand, he moved swiftly. Instead of retreating, he advanced. With a tap of his feet, he leapt nimbly into the air and forcefully swung his sword. There was a blur of movements. Not even the shadow of the sword could be clearly seen. Traceless sword. The longevity sword slid across the 2 Wolf King avatars. The 2 avatars shattered immediately. Concurrently, 2 miserable cries resonated in the air. Yu Shangrong landed behind the 2 Rulians. He did not even turn back to look at them to know the outcome. The longevity sword returned to its scabbard. Paw, paw, paw. The lavishly dressed man clapped his hands and said, you're quite skilled with the sword, my friend. You flatter me, the lavishly dressed man continued to say. There are many with outstanding sword skills in Great Yan. I've heard about many sword path elites. Sword freak Chen Wenji, sword devil Yu Shangrong, sword slave Wang Haichao. Alas, compared to them, you still have a long way to go. Indeed, Yu Shangrong did not contradict the man's words. His current cultivation base was only at the 3-leaf stage. He was a far cry from his former self. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Karen, younger brother of Ruli's great general Carol. Karen smiled confidently. Never heard of you. Quote. Carol, on the other hand, sounds familiar. Yu Shangrong wielded his sword with his right hand. He held it at an angle as he stepped forward. He was smiling, he clearly did not think much about Karen. A slight breeze ruffled his robes. Karen was filled with a sense of foreboding when he sensed Yu Shangrong's aura. Whiz! Karen spread his arms and a huge Wolf King avatar appeared behind him. It was a 6-leaf Wolf King avatar. A witchcraft formation has been laid here. Inside this formation, my strength can be temporarily boosted to the 7-leaf stage, Karen said. Yu Shangrong continued advancing with a smile on his face. Thud, 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 whiz. When Yu Shangrong was 10 meters away from the Wolf King avatar, his 30-foot avatar appeared next to him. The avatar was in a horizontal position as though it was flying. 3-leaf? When Karen saw Yu Shangrong's avatar, he frowned slightly. Soon after, a sneer appeared on his face. I've overestimated you. The black smoke from the forest gathered around the Wolf King avatar. At this moment, Yu Shangrong ran toward Karen. In just a blink of an eye, he vanished from sight. Karen was stunned. The world before his eyes seemed to distort and turned blurry. 3 shadows appeared to the left, right, and center. At the same time, Karen saw the leaves of the 3-leaf avatar spinning around a sword in a clockwise direction. Karen was shocked. There was no golden lotus. This was an avatar with only leaves. He wasted no time in releasing a burst of primal chi. Erupt! The primal chi from Karen's avatar spilled into the surroundings. I'm sorry, but you're too slow. A sharp sword struck. The 3 souls were gathered. The sword seemed to have penetrated Karen's soul as it pierced his avatar before it pierced his chest. The battle was over. The entire place was silent. Yu Shangrong stood behind Karen, his back was straight and his posture was poised. He was unbelievably graceful. His sword was still pointed ahead. Yu Shangrong did not care about Karen's life or death. Instead, he looked at the scarlet longevity sword. The 3 shining golden leaves spun around the longevity sword and vanished. This proved his hypothesis. Although the golden lotus's defense was formidable, the sharpness of the leaves was also remarkable. Karen pressed a hand to his chest as he fell to one knee, coughing violently. An incredulous expression could be seen on his face. Before the witchcraft had even completely boosted him, he was already killed. How did this happen? Why was this random Great Yan cultivator so powerful? You, Karen said with great difficulty, can you tell me why your name? So that I can rest in peace. Blood trickled out of the edges of his lips when he spoke, dyeing his robes red. Yu Shangrong turned around slowly. He did not even spare Karen a glance. He looked at the bundle lying between the 2 corpses as he raised his hand. The bundle flew up, its scent reminding him of a certain medicine. Survival pills? He smiled as he finally replied to Karen, Yu Shangrong. After revealing his name, Yu Shangrong flew up, mounted Bayan, and shot toward the horizons. Karen sat on the ground and chuckled to himself. Sword devil, no wonder. Alright, curse my rotten luck, then. He spat out another mouthful of blood. There was almost no chance that he could survive that sword strike. Nevertheless, his strong survival instinct kept him upright. I can't die. Sword devil, there's too much. Too much that you don't understand about Roly. Karen muttered to himself feverishly as he removed his clothes and drew several peculiar symbols on his body with his blood. It did not take long before he was completely covered in his blood. Paw. A figure walked out, clapping his hands. He looked at the Bayan's shrinking figure in the horizons with an expression of reverence and awe. No way, he did this? A 3-leaf cultivator killing a 6-leaf cultivator? Karen's head swiveled to look at the newcomer. The newcomer was peculiarly dressed. It seemed as though he did not notice Karen as praises flowed out of his mouth. How did he do that? A 3-leaf killing a 6-leaf? Did my eyes deceive me? Or is your 6-leaf cultivation base fake? No way, that's impossible. It can't be. Karen was puzzled. Hey, I'm talking to you. The peculiarly dressed man kicked Karen. Aw. Karen was already on the brink of death. When he was kicked, he felt as though his internal organs had split apart. A few moments ago, he still had hopes that he could save his own life, but his hopes vanished without a trace at this moment. His eyes were bloodshot as he said, who are you? You vermin who strikes a man when he's down. The peculiarly dressed man scratched his head. Yu Shangrong's image surfaced in his mind. He cleared his throat and said nonchalantly, my apologies. I'm Yu Shangrong. Quote. Karen's mind turned blank. Was he hallucinating after being stabbed by a sword? The person he had fought earlier had said he was Yu Shangrong. How could there be another Yu Shangrong? He coughed violently as he thought to himself, illusion, this is an illusion. Karen closed his eyes to stabilize his breathing. He rubbed his eyes and opened them again. Sword devil? The peculiarly dressed man nodded lightly and said, it's only a title. It's too insignificant to mention. Quote. Fight me fairly if you dare, Karen said, seething with anger. I'm sorry, I'm the kind of person who likes to seize the opportunity when my opponent is down. The strange man raised his hand. A hook-like weapon appeared in his hand. You shameless. The separation hook slashed across Karen's neck. Then, a few energy seals landed on his chest. A moment later, Mingxi Yin raised his palms, raining down a barrage of blows on Karen before he finally nodded in satisfaction. Second senior brother, you truly know too little about the other tribes. I'm better suited to deal with these other tribesmen. He stretched his limbs and looked at the sun in the sky. How nice. It's still early. I'll go to the Big Dipper Academy and get myself some leaf sprouting pills. Inside the eastern pavilion of the Evil Sky Pavilion. Ding! Killed a target. Reward, 1000 merit points. Ding! Killed a target. Reward, 1000 merit points. Ding! Killed a target. Reward, 1500 merit points. When Lu Zhou heard these notifications, he opened his eyes, temporarily pulled out of his meditative state. Yu Shengrong? With Yu Shengrong's current 3-leaf cultivation base, it should be slightly difficult for him to kill a grand cultivator. Ming Shi Yin must have helped him. It's good that they're helping each other out. Lu Zhou closed his eyes and continued to meditate. The next morning, Yu Shengrong had already returned to the Evil Sky Pavilion. He did not delay and made his way to the Eastern Pavilion. He said with a bow, "I am honored that I didn't let you down, Master. I've brought back 223 survival pills." "Good," Lu Zhou asked. "Did everything go smoothly?" "Everything went smoothly. There were no troubles," Yu Shengrong replied. There was a moment of silence before Lu Zhou said, "You never used to lie." Yu Shengrong was taken aback. Then, he bowed and said, "I've made a mistake. I did run into 3 individuals on my way back. They're petty thieves and aren't worthy of mentioning. It's good to see that you've returned. Rest well," Lu Zhou said. Yu Shengrong was about to turn around and leave when he recalled Si Wuya's words. "I have a request, Master." "Let's hear it. I'd like to read 7th Junior Brother's diary." "Diary?" Lu Zhou opened his eyes and looked at the table next to him. He waved his hand. An energy picked the diary up and brought it out of the room. Bam! The door closed. Yu Shengrong caught the diary. He bowed and said, "I'll take my leave." Ding! Yu Shengrong accomplished the survival pill mission. Reward, 10,000 merit points. Lu Zhou closed his eyes and continued to meditate on the heavenly writing scrolls. He did not leave the Eastern Pavilion over the next 4 days. On the 5th morning, Lu Zhou sensed that his extraordinary power was completely replenished. His mental state and bodily functions were much better than before. "My cultivation base seems to have improved as well," Lu Zhou mumbled to himself. "It seems like making breakthroughs at quite a rapid pace. In that case, he should save his merit points to purchase the golden lotus leaf. If he could save his merit points and use them when things get difficult in the later stages, he should be able to rank up quicker." Lu Zhou stretched his body before he opened the door and went out. Little Yuan'er was hopping about as she practiced with her nirvana sash. When she saw Lu Zhou, she said, "Master. 7th Senior Brother left for Qing Province yesterday. He saw that you were resting and told me to convey the message to you." "I see." Lu Zhou descended the steps with his hands on his back. With Si Wuya's cultivation base, it would be difficult for him to drag Yu Zhengai back here. The reason Lu Zhou had sent him on the mission was partly due to him being able to easily meet Yu Zhengai. Even if he could not bring Yu Zhengai back here by force, at the very least, he could be of help to Yu Zhengai in confronting the imperial family. When Lu Zhou recalled Si Wuya's words, he sighed. Indeed, that rascal had it rough. Before he could retrieve his memory crystal, he would not be so bold as to confirm whether Ji Tiandao did try to kill Yu Zhengai or not. "I'm a reasonable person, after all." Then, he looked at little Yuan'er and asked, "Yuan'er, how's your cultivation coming along recently?" Little Yuan'er appeared aggrieved as she replied, "Master, it's so difficult to sprout leaves. I can't seem to make the 3rd one appear." "The 3rd leaf? Since when did you sprout a 2nd leaf?" Lu Zhou remembered that the little girl had just recently sprouted her 1st leaf. Most cultivators would experience a drop in their cultivating speed once they entered the nascent divinity tribulation realm. However, this little girl was progressing more and more quickly. It was almost illogical. Little Yuan'er scratched her head. "I think it was half a month ago. I can't really remember." "Half a month ago?" Lu Zhou was at loss for words. Was she not asking for the moon, thinking she could sprout the 3rd leaf overnight? "I'm going out. You stay here and cultivate well." "Master, I want to go with you," little Yuan'er said excitedly. Lu Zhou scowled as he reprimanded her. "Don't make me repeat my words." "Oh," Lu Zhou waved his sleeve and headed to the back of the mountain. Little Yuan'er felt aggrieved as she looked at her master's retreating back. Previously, her master would bring her everywhere he went. Now, he was leaving her behind. How could she not feel wronged? She muttered to herself, "Master must think my cultivation base is too weak. Otherwise, why would he ask about my cultivation base?" At the back of the mountain, Lu Zhou flipped his palm. An appearance alteration card appeared in his hand. In the past, Lu Zhou did not have much means to protect himself. He had to bring little Yuan'er with him everywhere he went. However, it was different now. He was already a nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivator. He also had the heavenly writing powers and his item cards. He would have no problems defending himself. If he brought little Yuan'er along, it would be easier for someone else to see through his disguise. In the cultivation world, only those in the nascent divinity tribulation realm were considered as properly initiated. Only nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivators could unleash grand techniques. There was no concrete definition of a grand technique. Most cultivators used it as an umbrella term for the mightiest techniques of the Confucian, Buddhist, and Taoist societies. For example, the Sword Devil's Destiny of the Sword Path and the Dark Heaven Starlight of the Saber Path. The second reason was only nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivators could form a golden lotus and sprout leaves. Since he was now in the nascent divinity tribulation realm, he was no longer a weakling. Qing Province? Lu Zhou looked in the direction of Qing Province. I'd like to see what this rascal is up to. With the appearance alteration card, it would be much easier to catch the rascal, Yu Zhengai. Even if he were to leave the evil sky pavilion, nobody would question him. Yu Shangrong and the others could look after Golden Court Mountain. The barrier had been restored, it was now an impregnable fortress. Wizard, with the command, Wizard came on the clouds. Lu Zhou leapt onto the beast's back and flew out the back of the mountain. Lu Zhou shattered the appearance alteration card when he was up in the skies. A faint energy swirled around him. A unique sensation made his senses tingle. He did not know what appearance he had now, so he landed near a lake near the back of the mountain. Then, he peered into the lake to look at his reflection on its surface. He saw another old man looking back at him. This old man seemed more spirited. Half of his hair was black, and his facial features were sharper. He was pleased with what he saw. Lu Zhou did not stay for long. He mounted Wizard and made his way to Qing Province. 2 days later, in the heaven room on the second floor of Clouds Inn in Jing Province City, Lu Zhou looked at the city through the window. He instinctively stroked his beard as he fell deep in his thoughts. When he reached for his beard, he noticed it was much shorter than it used to be. Well, he had not gotten used to his new appearance. Lu Zhou had arrived in the city the day before. He was surprised to find that the Nether sect had yet to extend its reach to Jing Province City. The citizens did not seem to be affected as well. The Nether sect was no fool. They had promised early on that they would not lay a hand on the civilians. After all, they wanted to achieve world dominion. The civilians were the roots of the world, not their enemies. Their enemies were Great Yan's imperial family and the opposing factions. Jing Province was located in the area innermost of Great Yan. It was not a place that remote places like Liang Province could compare to. Alas, Lu Zhou had not seen Yu Zhengai. Thud, thud, thud. As he entertained his thoughts, a knock rang from outside. Who's there? Lu Zhou turned around slowly as he sighed. Perhaps he had gotten accustomed to the character of an eccentric old man in this world. He was not Ji Tiandao and not the original Lu Zhou, but a new character. Without waiting for a reply, he said, "Come in." A waiter entered the room after closing the door. He said tentatively, "Dear customer, I have information regarding the matter you asked me about. The great general guarding Jing Province City is one of the divine capital's 8 great generals. He's General Wen Shu, commander of the Southwest and a Confucian Society elite. The formation of Jing Province City was laid by the Confucian Society. What's the Nether sect up to now?" Lu Zhou asked. "You don't have to worry about that. It's said that even the sect master of the Nether sect can only look at the city even if he were here. Jing Province City is as secure as a city protected by a wall of metal and a moat of boiling water," the waiter replied. "You're very confident with Jing Province City's security? I'm not the only one. Everyone feels the same way. The people of Jing Province City aren't affected at all," the waiter said with a smile, "Dear customer. Since you're asking about this, you can't be." He wanted to say the word spy, but he quickly swallowed the word when he saw the killing intent brewing in the depths of Lu Zhou's eyes. "Please rest well." He shuddered and quickly retreated from the room in fright. Lu Zhou turned around to face the window. As he expected, the Nether sect was much weaker without Si Wuya. It could not even conquer Jing Province City. At dusk, in a certain Nether sect's branch, a flag that was raised in the center of the campground danced in the wind. Yu Zhengai was cultivating with his eyes closed as he sat on his throne. A cloud of mist was swirling before him. All of a sudden, he flipped his hand. The jasper saber appeared out of thin air above his palm. His forehead was drenched in sweat as his eyes suddenly snapped open. He raised his sleeve to wipe the sweat off his forehead as he murmured, "Master, please don't make me. It's just a dream." At this moment, Hua Chongyang walked in excitedly. "Sect Master, what is it? Mr. Seventh is back." Upon hearing this, Yu Zhengai rose to his feet immediately. A strange light gleamed in his eyes as he said, "Hurry, where is her?" Yu Zhengai's voice had barely faded when Si Wuya sauntered into the hall. He wore a long Confucian scholar robe and held the peacock plume in his hand. His expression was calm, but his eyes were lively. After he walked to the center of the hall, he cupped his fists and said, "We meet again, eldest senior brother." Yu Zhengai hastened down the steps, visibly excited. He walked up to Si Wuya, at a loss for words. The exhaustion that had plagued him lately seemed to have vanished at this moment. Finally, he raised his hands and placed them on Si Wuya's shoulders as he said excitedly, "My dear brother, how I miss you so." Si Wuya, quote. Hua Chongyang. Yu Zhenggai's expression was rather telling even though they could understand his feelings. Hua Chongyang had spent a fair portion of his time listening to Yu Zhenggai's ramblings. The phrases he often heard were, "This would have turned out much better if Junior Brother did it, if only Junior Brother were here," and the likes. The four great protectors had a headache from all the ramblings. How could Hua Chongyang not be delighted about Si Wuya's return as well? Si Wuya endured the pain on his shoulders and said, "Eldest senior brother, let's not celebrate just yet." Master sent me here." Upon hearing this, Yu Zhengai instinctively took a step back. He frowned. "Master?" Si Wuya said, "Master is already at the 9-leaf stage." Yu Zhengai waved his hand and said, "If you're trying to persuade me, you can save your breath." "That's not what I mean." "Then what do you mean?" Yu Zhengai's tone grew stern and grim. "Master's growing senile. Have you grown senile as well? The one I'm opposing has always been Great Yan's imperial family and never the evil Sky Pavilion." "I know," Si Wuya responded calmly. "Then, why are you helping Master?" Yu Zhengai questioned. The entire Great Hall was as silent as a graveyard. Si Wuya only stared at Yu Zhengai silently, waiting for Yu Zhengai's anger to abate. It was just as Si Wuya had expected. After a while, Yu Zhengai gradually calmed down. Finally, Si Wuya said, "Master isn't senile." An expression of confusion appeared on Yu Zhengai's face. Si Wuya said, "Perhaps we're both wrong." He paused before continuing, "Master has ordered me to come here and bring you back to the evil Sky Pavilion. However, Master knows that with my cultivation base, it's impossible for me to make you do anything you refuse to. Knowing that, why did he still send me here? Master wants to go against Great Yan as well?" Yu Zhengai asked. Si Wuya did not respond directly. Instead, he said, "Master left the choice to me, and think that I've made up my mind a long time ago." Yu Zhengai appeared stunned, unable to understand Si Wuya's words. Si Wuya shook his head and changed the topic. "Why aren't you severing your golden lotus and attempting to attain the 9-leaf stage, eldest senior brother?" Yu Zhengai said disapprovingly. "Severing my lotus means that I'll have to cultivate from the beginning again. What I aim to do is to take over the world while everyone severs their lotuses." Si Wuya nodded. "In that case, the sooner the better." Upon hearing this, something stirred in Yu Zhengai's heart. He appeared overjoyed as he waved his hand and said, "Hua Chongyang, quickly bring the map over." "Yes, Sect Master." Shortly after, Hua Chongyang placed the map of Jing Province City on the big table. He briefed Si Wuya in detail about the current situation in Jing Province City as well. Yu Zhengai pointed at the area around Jing Province City and said, "The person guarding Jing Province City is Wen Shu, one of the 8 commanders of the Divine Capital. This man is from the Confucian societies. He's skilled in formations and that's giving me a headache." At the side, Hua Chongyang cupped his fists and said, "If it weren't for this formation, Sect Master could have taken down Wen Shu on his own. Jing Province would have fallen a long time ago. My wise brother, do you have any good plans? Do you have any of your men planted around Wen Shu?" Yu Zhengai looked at Si Wuya expectantly as though he was looking at a beautiful lady. Goosebumps rose on Si Wuya's skin from being stared at so intently. He felt helpless about the change in the way his eldest senior brother addressed him as well. He shook his head and said, "The 8 commanders aren't your run-of-the-mill officials. The people around them can't be taken down that easily. Besides, we've used this tactic in Liang Province before. We can't use it again." Yu Zhengai sighed in disappointment. Si Wuya said, "But I do have another idea. My wise brother." "Tell me, quick." Yu Zhengai kept addressing him as his wise brother. It felt like he no longer cared about appearing imposing. Jing Province's geography is treacherous. It's also a place where wild beasts are gathered. There are many mountains and forests around it. We can use the beasts to whittle away at the formation, Si Wuya said. Yu Zhengai frowned and said, "I'm not the king of beasts, how am I supposed to order them around?" Si Wuya said, "What a coincidence. In the 3 days' time, north of Jing Province, there will be a live sacrifice on the heaven worship platform." "A live sacrifice? It's only a mindless act of sacrificing a person to the heavens. That's unimportant. What's important is the sacrificial person is born with the innate ability to understand the tongue of beasts. He's a person gifted in tune." Hua Chongyang's eyes lit up. He bowed and said, "Now that you mentioned it, Mr. Seventh, I have some recollection of it as well. I did some digging around Jing Province City before this. Indeed, there's something like that coming up. However, I didn't think much of it before and didn't ask anyone else about it in detail." Yu Zhengai nodded and said, "My wise brother. You're telling me that we should snatch this person away and use him for our cause?" "That's right." Yu Zhengai's eyes brightened up. He stood up and patted Si Wuya's shoulder. With a forthright smile, he said, "Why didn't I think of that before, my wise brother?" Hua Chongyang had a respectful expression on his face. Well, it had been the same piece of information, but he had thought nothing of it. On the contrary, that information he had easily discarded became extremely useful in Si Wuya's hands. Si Wuya nearly spat out blood from the forceful pat on his shoulder. He said, however, my cultivation base isn't profound. It's not practical for me to whisk this person away. Yu Zhengai said, that can be easily arranged. You may use my 4 great protectors as you see fit. The others are in Liang province, but just give the word, my wise brother, and they'll come to you in haste. After he finished speaking, he felt his words were not sincere enough, so he thumped his chest and added, I'll be at your service as well. Upon hearing this, Hua Chongyang hastily said, Muster 7th. Please leave this to me. I'm familiar with the layout of Jing Province City, and I know where the heaven worship platform is. How could he allow the great sect master of the Nether sect to personally whisk someone away? Such an act was beneath his sect master. Yu Zhengai looked at Hua Chongyang disapprovingly. Si Wuya nodded and said, in that case, I'll have to trouble you, brother Chongyang. It's my duty, Hua Chongyang replied. Si Wuya said meaningfully, although the people from the powerful factions won't be on heaven worship platform, you should still keep a low profile just to be safe. You shouldn't expose your identity as well, otherwise, not even eldest senior brother can save you. Also, if you can go about it with your wits, don't resort to force. After all, the activity at the heaven worship platform deals with men. Understood, Hua Chongyang said. Go, then. Hua Chongyang retreated from the great hall reverently. After Hua Chongyang left, Yu Zhengai nodded in satisfaction. I feel much more at ease when you're around, wise brother. I've been troubled these few days. I've racked my brain, but I can't seem to come up with a way to take down Jing Province City. Si Wuya smiled and said, the 4 great protectors have profound cultivation bases. There's no shortage of abled men in the Nether sect as well. How is it that nobody can think of anything? Yu Zhengai shook his head and said, now that the 9 provinces are in chaos, I have no problem focusing on taking one city at a time. However, keeping tabs on the overall situation is much more difficult. Bai Yuqing, Yang Yan, and Di Qing are guarding Liang province, and they have to guard against sudden advances from the Rulians. The more concerns I have, the more muddled my brain becomes. The more muddled my brain is, the more difficult it is for me to calm down and think of a countermeasure. This was especially true now that a 9-leaf cultivator had appeared. And they had entered the Lotus Severing era. He was truly flustered. On the surface, although he had plunged the 9 provinces into chaos and many places are now under the Nether sect's control, he could not consider himself as having succeeded so long as the Divine Capital's lifeline remained intact. Taking down the Imperial City in the Divine Capital sounded far-fetched. There's no need to worry, eldest senior brother, Si Wuya said in a soft voice, I'll do everything I can. For some reason, Yu Zhengai felt there was something different about the current Si Wuya. He did not know what Si Wuya had experienced to become so determined. Si Wuya had become more grounded. However, he did not comment on the changes. He turned around with his hands on his back and looked at the map of Great Yan on the table. Business went on as usual in Cloud's Inn. Lu Zhou parted the curtains and looked down at the streets. There did not seem to be any disturbances. Did I waste my appearance alteration card? A knock sounded on the door at this moment. Your meal, dear customer. The waiter entered and placed the dishes on the table. Lu Zhou glanced at the dishes. In truth, nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivators often did not need to eat for as long as 10 days to a fortnight. However, since he was in Jing Province City, he could not afford to draw attention to himself. He asked, waiter, did anything happen in Jing Province City lately? Dear customer, you've asked me this question many times. Jing Province City is as peaceful as can be. There's no place safer than here. You can feel at ease staying here, the waiter said confidently. Lu Zhou had expected this response. At this moment, there was a commotion on the streets below. Some low-ranked cultivators gathered on the streets and marched north. There were also many who were dressed in outlandish and ostentatious clothes. Lu Zhou pointed at them. Waiter, what's this about? The waiter tiptoed to the window and looked out before he shook his head and said, a live sacrifice, that's what it is. It's boring. A live sacrifice? In the past, they sacrificed pigs, oxen, lambs, or other livestock. I heard they're going to sacrifice a living person this time. Who knows if it's true? As the waiter talked, he prepared the table. Enjoy your meal. Regardless of the era, there would always be things like this. Lu Zhou shook his head. He did not want to stick his nose into where it did not belong. The streets were getting livelier by the minute. Just when he was about to close the windows, he saw a man speeding through the crowd. He was dressed plainly, but his appearance seemed familiar to Lu Zhou. This person is. Lu Zhou could not recall his name. What's his name again? He looks familiar. Curse my memory. The more he looked at the man, the more curious he became. He tapped his feet lightly on the ground before he leapt out into the alley next to the inn. He walked onto the street and followed the man. At the end of the street, the man suddenly stopped and turned around. Why are you following me, old mister? The man had intentionally walked on this stretch of road when he discovered he was being followed. My little friend, have we met? Lu Zhou asked calmly. This was a genuine question. He still could recall where he had met this man. My name's Hua Yang. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, old mister. Stop tailing me. If the man did not mention this name, Lu Zhou would not have instantly recalled who this man was. It was none other than Hua Chongyang, the leader of the Nether Sect's 4 great protectors and the first seed of the Azure Dragon Hall. Why would the great leader of the 4 great protectors, a 7-leaf golden lotus elite, enter Jing Province City on his own? When Hua Chongyang turned around and left, a frown could be seen on his face. He quickly searched his memories and confirmed he had not met the old man before. It would be bad if his identity was exposed and foiled Mr. Seventh's plan. Lu Zhou glanced at the remaining time of the appearance alteration card. He still had about 2 days left. He continued following Hua Chongyang. So long as he followed Hua Chongyang, he would certainly be able to meet the rascal, Yu Zhengai. Lu Zhou hid his aura and was now no different from an ordinary pedestrian. He was quite pleased with the appearance alteration card. If Hua Chongyang knew who he was, he would have been scared out of his wits and ran away. Hua Chongyang navigated through 4 streets and emerged from the main city. He proceeded northward from Jing Province City. Halfway through the journey, he suddenly swerved to the side and launched an attack behind him at lightning speed. Forgive me, old man. When he was 10 meters away from Lu Zhou, Hua Chongyang noticed that Lu Zhou appeared unflustered. He felt an unexplainable pressure weigh down on his chest. Just when Hua Chongyang's energy fist was about to reach Lu Zhou's face, Lu Zhou raised a hand. His fingers seemed to be electrified. The bolts of electricity could be vaguely seen. He pushed his arm forward. Bam! The instant the 2 palms collided, a vertical blast of energy rippled out. Hua Chongyang instantly reeled from the formidable power. He flipped as he flew backward. After flipping thrice, he landed and staggered 3 steps back. His eyes were brimming with shock. Peng Lai energy palm? 6-leaf? 7-leaf? 8-leaf? He was not sure. This was because he merely used 30% of his power. However, since the old man faced him in such a calm manner, he was certain the old man had to be at the 6-leaf stage at least. Hua Chongyang no longer underestimated his opponent. He cupped his fists and said, "Old mister, I have no quarrel with you. Why are you following me?" Hua Chongyang had been mulling over this the entire time when he was traveling earlier. He did not have any friends with such a huge age gap between them. Moreover, he had disguised himself for this mission. He spent most of his time in the Nether Sect where he held a high rank. When they went about their various missions, he rarely had the chance to personally take action. Therefore, he was certain he had not met this old man before. Throughout his time with the Nether Sect, he had taken out quite a number of elites at the 6-leaf stage and above. He was worried that perhaps the old man had recognized him and had come to seek revenge from him. Lu Zhou did not answer Hua Chongyang immediately. Instead, he gauged his extraordinary power. The palm strike he launched was not powerful. It roughly contained 1/10 of his extraordinary power. Finally, he said half seriously as he threw out a random story, "My surname's Lu. I'm from Peng Lai. You resemble a friend of mine, young friend. It seems like I was mistaken." So what if he was mistaken? The person he wanted to find was Yu Zhengai. Lu Zhou's answer caused an expression of delight on Hua Chongyang's face. "Oh, a senior from Peng Lai. Forgive my rudeness. You know about Peng Lai? I don't only know about it." Hua Chongyang stopped talking abruptly, swallowing the rest of his words. He had almost ruined his mission. Lu Zhou, on the other hand, was intrigued. If he had known, he would not have said that he was from the Peng Lai sect, nor would he choose to mimic a Peng Lai sect technique when he attacked. Hua Chongyang changed the topic. "What brings you here to Jing Province, old mister?" "I'm looking for someone," Lu Zhou answered honestly. "What brings you here to Jing Province, young friend?" A question for a question. There were no losses. "I'm looking for someone," Hua Chongyang replied. Quote. Their conversation was tense and stilted, fraught with distrust. This was common in the cultivation world. Lu Zhou was not surprised by Hua Chongyang's response. At this moment, several cultivators flew on their swords in the air. They were heading north. All of them wore white robes and were moving swiftly. Hua Chongyang looked up at them with a slight frown and said, "The Hangchu branch?" He cupped his fists at Lu Zhou at once. "Old mister, I'd best get going. Until we meet again." He leapt into the air and tailed the Hangchu branch cultivators. Lu Zhou was puzzled. The Hangchu branch was one of the major branches from the Confucian societies. They had always kept a low profile over the past years. Why were they out and about now? Were these branches starting to make their moves after the fall of the 10 great sects? Perhaps they were thinking of ways to improve their sect's strength after the dawn of the Lotus Severing era? Lu Zhou did not dwell on this any longer. He stepped into the air and followed them, flying at full speed. As Hua Chongyang flew, he looked behind him. As he had expected, he saw Lu Zhou following him. He looked at the others from the Hangchu branch in front of him. Then, something stirred in him. The older, the wiser. It was too easy for something unexpected to happen if he was too close to his target. Hence, he slowed down. Senior Lu, are you going to the Heaven Worship Platform to see what the fuss is all about as well? Heaven Worship Platform? Then, Lu Zhou remembered what the Clouds Inn waiter told him and said, yes. Hua Chongyang felt uneasy when he heard this. Things were much more complicated than he had imagined them to be. He had assumed this was an ordinary live sacrifice and that a seven-leaf elite such as himself could easily accomplish his mission alone. Now that he discovered the elites from the Hangchu branch elites and the Peng Lai sect senior, he realized this was not a simple matter. Hua Chongyang had a better impression of the Peng Lai sect. The Confucian societies had governed the world for a long time. When the Nether sect began to walk on the road to world dominion, it was only natural for them to offend many Confucian cultivators who were also officials in the divine capital. In the end, Hua Chongyang slowed down even more. He blocked the wind with his energy as he asked, do you know about the person being sacrificed this time, Senior Lu? Not really. Lu Zhou was relieved Hua Chongyang had slowed down. How could he continue to tail Hua Chongyang otherwise? His target was moving at the speed of a seven-leaf nascent divinity realm elite while he was only at the one-leaf stage. He could use Wizard to catch up, but that would just be exposing his identity. Hua Chongyang thought about it for a moment before he said, I heard the woman is of unknown origins, and she's an evil person. Some say she's from Lu Lan, and some say that she's from the Endless Ocean. The point is, she's unusual. After she showed up, the beasts attacked the humans and the birds ran amok. In the cultivation world, these are unlucky signs. She's going to be used as a sacrifice. After he finished speaking, he furtively studied Lu Zhou's face. He wanted to make sure Lu Zhou was not after the same person. Naturally, Lu Zhou was not interested in these matters. His target was Yu Zhengai and Yu Zhengai alone. And you believe that? Of course not. Hua Chongyang shook his head. Are you going to rescue her? Lu Zhou asked. Hua Chongyang was stunned. This old man was something else. Before he could glean any information from the old man, he discovered he had been checkmated. Just like you, I'm just going to see what the fuss is about, Senior Lu. However, this woman's special. It's a shame for a living person to be offered up as a sacrifice. The hearts of men are difficult to fathom. We would be considered fortunate to be able to make it through this world smoothly. Who has the time to feel sorry for others? Lu Zhou said, you have a point, I'm enlightened. Hua Chongyang looked ahead. The Hangchu branch cultivators were no longer in sight. He said, Senior Lu, shall we pick up the pace? There's no need, Lu Zhou said calmly. Hua Chongyang gave it some thought and found it reasonable. He nodded at once and said, you're wise, Senior Lu. The Heaven Worship Platform won't go anywhere. There's no need to follow the people from the Hangchu branch. The two of them continued flying. They were neither fast nor slow. They flew past a patch of forest and river outside the city. Then, they saw a simple yet formal Heaven Worship Platform in plain colors. It was like a dark ink painting. The Heaven Worship Platform was not huge. It occupied about 100 meters of the land. It was completely paved with limestone. There were steps at its four corners. In the center of the Heaven Worship Platform, a raised dais seemed to have been temporarily erected. There was a wooden cross on it, and firewood was piled at its feet. They're really using a living person as a sacrifice? Senior Lu, there are many people here, Hua Chongyang said. The two of them landed slowly. They stepped into the bounds of the Heaven Worship Platform. Many low-rank cultivators were swarming in and surrounding the Heaven Worship Platform. Kill the demon woman! Kill the demon woman! Kill the demon woman! Lu Zhou and Hua Chongyang heard the cries from the crowd and turned to look. The Hangchu branch cultivators in white robes were gathered together. They did not join in the shouting. There was another group of cultivators in Taoist robes to their left. Both groups were looking at each other. Hua Chongyang frowned. As he expected, things were truly complicated. Young friend, why are you frowning? Lu Zhou asked. There are too many people here. It's noisy, Hua Chongyang replied. Why don't we leave now? You're like a long-lost friend to me. Would you care to join me for a cup of tea? Lu Zhou tried his best to make himself seem peaceful and approachable. I can't appear imposing now. However, Hua Chongyang shook his head and said, let's take a look now that we're here. He promised his sect master and Mr. Seventh that he would complete the mission. How could he give up halfway? Although the situation was complicated, it was still controllable. Hua Chongyang looked up at the wooden platform and asked, Senior Lu, you're not here for the woman? His eyes were brimming with doubt and disbelief when he asked the question. Lu Zhou knew that Hua Chongyang would not believe him no matter what his answer was. Hence, he said, why are you asking me if you've already made up your mind about me? Hua Chongyang would never believe him, regardless of his answer. Even if he said he was not from the Peng Lai sect, and the Nether sect did not have any quarrel with the Peng Lai sect. He did not think Hua Chongyang would trust his words since they were merely strangers who had come together. It was only natural that they guarded against each other. For these reasons, he felt it was enough to just give a vague answer. Hua Chongyang pointed in the opposite direction of the white swordsman and said, "The people from the Taishu Academy are here as well. It's quite the lineup. Are you afraid?" "Why would I be afraid? If we fight, there's no telling who's going to emerge victorious," Hua Chongyang replied. "It's good to be confident, but overconfidence can make you conceited." Lu Zhou saw this kind of excessive self-confidence in Yu Shangrong and Si Wuya as well. Sometimes their confidence would help them, but it would pull them down as well. Among his disciples, if he had to choose one who was the best at carrying out missions, he would certainly pick his fourth disciple, Mingxi Yin. Up until now, Mingxi Yin had never let him down. Hua Chongyang replied with a smile, "It's not overconfidence, it's self-confidence. Self-confidence stems from strength. Aren't you confident as well, Senior Lu?" Lu Zhou did not reply to him even though he wanted to say he was brimming with confidence. He looked at the still empty wooden platform and knew the main characters had yet to arrive. Feeling bored, he said, "Let's talk about the person who's going to be sacrificed. I don't know much about her. Aside from her ability to speak the tongue of beasts and that she's musically gifted. It's said that she was seen blowing on a conch as she sat on the shoreline. The sound attracted many vicious beasts from the sea who attacked the fishermen. Naturally, all this is hearsay. I can't verify them," Hua Chongyang replied. Initially, Lu Zhou did not pay much attention to the woman. However, it was hard for him not to notice someone with such a special ability. Her ability was so special that she was being used as a sacrifice. "Does no one know where she came from?" Lu Zhou asked. "Nobody knows if she's another tribesman or if she's from Great Yan. There are those who can talk to beasts among the other tribesmen. That's nothing special. However, it's indeed rare that she's able to incite ferocious beasts into action," Lu Zhou said. While Lu Zhou and Hua Chongyang conversed, the crowd was growing impatient. Some of them even began to shout due to their impatience. "What's taking so long? Bring the demon woman here. Hey, everyone's been waiting for ages. The citizens of Jing Province City are watching. The people won't be able to eat and sleep in peace as long as the demon woman is alive. Hurry up." Under the urging of the crowd, a middle-aged man dressed in peculiar clothes stepped forward. He wore a brocade hat and his face was painted in vibrant colors. His sound wave rolled over the crowd, traveling far since it contained primal chi. "Order, order." Then, he looked at the sun for a moment before he said, "The time has come. Bring forth the demon woman." As soon as he finished speaking, the heaven worship platform fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the path on the left. A slender figure could be seen walking on the path accompanied by two figures. The moment light hit the slender body, the crowd gasped in shock. If they were unaware, they would not have associated the girl they were seeing with the demon woman. Although her clothes were tattered, her black hair was messy, she had patches of dirt on her face, she was barefooted, and her hands were bound by a rope. These did not mask her exquisite beauty at all. Her most eye-catching feature was her pair of big, shiny, ink-black eyes. They seemed almost lost under her long eyelashes. The words Miss Conch appeared in many of their minds. Many among the crowd thought of the same term, Miss Conch. The woman had successfully attracted everyone's attention. Everyone was looking at her at this moment. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of her walking on the wooden platform rang crisply in the air. For a time, this was the only sound that could be heard on the heaven worship platform. When she finally walked to the center of the platform, the crowd broke into an uproar. Hua Chongyang and Lu Zhou turned to look. Lu Zhou had been curious since earlier. He was shocked when he discovered the Eye of Truth did not provide him with any information. What's the meaning of this? Lu Zhou wondered if the system was deliberately making his undercover mission more difficult for him. Based on what he could tell at this moment, the woman had no primal chi fluctuation nor did she possess the aura of a cultivator. If that were the case, how did she incite the beasts to attack people? At the same time, the crowd looked at each other before they shifted their eyes to the girl. Then, they began to shout. "Demon woman!" The girl seemed even more confused. It was as though she did not understand what was going on. Strangely, as confused as she was, she did not seem surprised, afraid, or nervous. It was clear she was just perplexed. More lost than before. At this moment, the old male priest on the heaven worship platform looked down and said, "Bring her here." Understood. The two cultivators sent their energy out to prop the girl up on the wooden platform. Then the old priest waved his horsetail whisk. The rope circled thrice around the girl and bound her to the wood. The scorching sun shone down on the girl. Her disheveled hair, the dirt on her face, her old and tattered clothes, and her fair exposed feet did nothing to obscure her beauty. In fact, it accentuated her lofty, out-of-this-world charm. "Do you know why she's being tied up?" Lu Zhou asked. "I don't." Hua Chongyang shook his head. "Do you think she's a demon woman?" Lu Zhou asked again. "She doesn't look like one." "Why not?" Gut feeling. Hua Chongyang remembered his own mission. Naturally, he would not forget why he was here. He asked, "What do you think, Senior Lu?" "I think she's the demon woman," Lu Zhou said. "Why's that?" Lu Zhou placed his hands on his back and slowly said, "She's not surprised, not flustered, not panicking, not afraid, not cowering. Do you think ordinary girls can maintain their composure like her? She has no primal chi fluctuations. How could she command vicious beasts? She's barely 16. How can you explain the fact that nobody knows where she's from or even her name?" Lu Zhou's words rendered Hua Chongyang speechless. Upon seeing this, Lu Zhou only smiled and no longer said anything. Hua Chongyang was clearly here for this little girl. There was no need to ask further questions. The old priest on the heaven worship platform looked at the sun again and said in a clear voice, "The time has come. Let us worship heaven now." Dong! The bell tolled, signifying the ritual had begun. Most of everyone looked at the old priest. On the other hand, the people from the Hengchu branch and the Taishu Academy kept staring at each other, but nobody made the first move. It was as though they were merely here to supervise the ritual. The old priest loudly said, "I'm Yongping of Breeze Mountain. I hereby purify you of your sins in the name of the heavens. You'll have your ashes forever scattered, you'll be covered in flames, you'll sink to the bottom of the ocean. Your soul will be tired, and your will be tested. Sins cannot tolerate souls, and evil cannot tolerate ugliness. Preaching is useless. Broken bones and a scorched body is the best punishment. Let it burn." After his long speech, he waved his hand. Everyone widened their eyes in anticipation of the wood catching fire. Whoosh! Embers glowed as a fire started. At this moment, the girl looked down, clearly puzzled. Boom! At this moment, a member of the Taishu Academy sent an energy palm out and scattered the firewood at the base of the cross. Academy member stunned Yongping, the old priest. He looked at the scattered firewood on the heaven worship platform with a furious expression on his face. He pointed at the people from the Taishu Academy and said, "How dare you? Who are you to go against the will of the heavens?" The person who made a move said in a clear voice, "I am Taishu Academy's first disciple, Zhang Renyi. It's only natural for me to take action when there are lies in your words." Yongping snorted before he said, "You don't get to decide what's right or wrong. You'll have to see if the people agree with you." He really did not expect someone to cause trouble at this juncture. Over the years, he had never had any issues conducting the rituals of Jing Province City in the past. The only difference this time was they were using a living person as a sacrifice, so the crowd, which consisted of many cultivators, was bigger. However, he was not worried. His confidence came from the knowledge that he had the support of the common folk. Although the common folk was as weak as ants, only cultivators who were out of their minds would openly oppose the will of the people. After all, the mortals were the foundation of cultivators. They provided the cultivation world with new blood. Even the emperor had to bend to the will of the people. The cultivators were no different. Openly attacking civilians would only earn one scorn and hostility from other cultivators. This had long been an unwritten rule in the cultivation world. As the old priest had expected, the common folk began to rebuke the member from the Taishu Academy. "The demon woman should be killed. Kill the demon woman. You shouldn't defend the demon woman." The Taishu Academy's first disciple, Zhang Renyi, said in a loud voice, "You're a Taoist. And yet, you're talking about the rituals of the other tribes. How dare you sacrifice a living human and fool the masses for your own personal gains? Who gave you the courage to do this?" Yongping's face darkened as he said, "Seething, how dare you? The Tao is before the celestial emperor. Primal chi gives rise to all things, and yet, is insubstantial." Zhang Renyi said loudly, "I've told you that I'm from the Taishu Academy. You're a Taoist, how dare you spout nonsense? Sins cannot tolerate souls, evil cannot tolerate ugliness? Who taught you that?" The cultivators present on the scene felt that Zhang Renyi's words made sense when they heard them. No matter how loudly the people shouted, all they could do was make noise. They could not alter the wills of the cultivators. Cultivation theories in Great Yan were founded by thought. Instructions based on those theories were used for cultivation. The Confucian, Buddhist, and Taoist societies did not have such rituals. Instead, it seemed similar to the witchcraft of the other tribes. Cultivators who joined academies would be even more aware of this. Zhang Renyi's speech seemed to make the masses give pause. Meanwhile, Yongping took a step backward. Clap, clap, clap. At the same time, the white-robed cultivators from the Hengchu branch who were standing across him applauded. The applause was so abrupt that it easily drew everyone's attention. As expected of the Taishu Academy's first disciple, I agree with him. This old priest bears the physical body of a great Yan citizen, and yet, he possesses the filthy soul and distasteful thoughts of the other tribesmen. I propose that we kill him first. Kill him. The members from the Hengchu branch shouted in unison in voices that were so loud that it seemed as though they could shock the heavens. With the primal chi in their voices, the sound wave resounded through the entire area. The Taishu Academy's first disciple, Zhang Renyi, cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for your support, everyone. He looked around himself before he faced the people again and said, "My dear people, don't be fooled by this man. Open your eyes and see. Is that little girl, bound on the cross, a demon lady?" On the wooden platform, the girl blinked her huge eyes curiously as she watched the proceedings. Zhang Renyi continued to say, "You old thing. You're treating the life of another human with as much worth as a stack of hay. You should confess to your own crimes now." Yang Ping took another step back. When he saw that the situation had turned unfavorable, he pushed away from the ground and leapt up into the sky. If he had chosen to stay and defend himself with words, he might still be able to redeem himself. After all, the accusations hurled at him were without proof at the moment. However, now that he had chosen to flee, his guilt was apparent. The people were shocked as well when they saw the old priest fleeing. Running away, Zhang Can, an elder from the Hengchu branch elder, drew his sword and leapt into the air. His primal chi surged and 5 energy swords spun around his sword. He pushed both palms out and the energy swords shot out. Bam, bam, bam. Yang Ping was only a low-rank cultivator who had not even entered the Brahmin Sea realm. In just a blink of an eye, the 5 energy swords pierced him from behind. He cried out wretchedly as he fell from the sky. Zhang Can shouted, "A person with the ambition of wild wolves like him should submit to the rule of law and confess his crimes." Zhang Can shouted, "Good. Nice kill." Zhang Renyi, the Taishu Academy's first disciple, looked at the girl who was bound to the wooden cross and said in a clear voice, "Under my master's orders. I'll bring her back to the academy to be dealt with." "Hold up," Zhang Can raised a hand. "Do you have a problem? Who gives the Taishu Academy the right to take her away? What do you treat the Hengchu branch as?" Zhang Can coldly said. It was quite clear the reason for their presence here. Something stirred within Zhang Renyi. His gaze was fierce as he said, "Is the Hengchu branch trying to meddle in this matter as well?" The disciples of the Taishu Academy had already gotten into position. Zing, zing, zing. The Hengchu branch cultivators unsheathed their swords. Those who have no business here should stand back. The common folk could tell something was amiss. And they retreated like the receding tide until they were out of the heaven worship platform's bounds. At this moment, Lu Zhou and Hua Chongyang were the only ones who stood unmoving from their spot. For this reason, they stood out. How could they not draw attention to themselves at this time? The members of the Hengchu branch and Taishu Academy looked at the duo. Unrelated people should scram, Zhang Can shouted. Hua Chongyang shook his head. "I have a better suggestion." Zhang Can and Zhang Renyi exchanged a look. "Why don't we ask her for her opinion?" Hua Chongyang pointed at the girl on the wooden cross. Everyone was fighting over her, and yet, nobody paid any heed to her opinion. Upon hearing Hua Chongyang's words, the members of the Hengchu branch and Taishu Academy exchanged glances. "I agree. Me, too." The representatives of both sides looked at the girl on the wooden cross with expectant expressions. Zhang Renyi looked at the girl and said, "Don't be afraid. What do you say to coming back to the Taishu Academy with me? If you follow me, I'll give you anything you want." He struggled to maintain his expression. He was afraid of scaring the girl. The girl cast her gaze downward. She looked at Zhang Renyi for a mere second before she shook her head. Upon seeing this, Zhang Can laughed loudly. He said, "Zhang Renyi, you should give up while you can. Little girl, return to the Hengchu branch with me. The sect master will personally teach you how to cultivate. The senior disciples of the Hengchu branch will be your helpers." The girl glanced at Zhang Can before she shook her head again. Zhang Can. The members of the Taishu Academy laughed as well in an act of revenge. At this moment, Hua Chongyang asked in a clear voice as he looked at the girl, "Miss, what's your name?" Lu Zhou remained silent as he stood in his spot. However, his interest in the girl was growing. Who was she that the other sects were fighting over her? They even gave her special treatment and promised her so many benefits. Hua Chongyang's question drew everyone's attention again. It suddenly dawned on everyone that they did not even know the girl's name after talking so much. All of them shifted their eyes to her. The girl shook her head again, seemingly at a loss. She struggled to free her hands. Since the rope was already loosened by the energy blast. With a firm tug, it fell to the ground easily. Then, she raised the item in her hand and softly said, "Conk." "Conk?" Hua Chongyang smiled. "All right, I'll call you Conk. Will you come with me?" Perhaps it was due to Hua Chongyang asking for her name, the girl smiled warmly against the sunlight. However, she did not respond to him. Instead, she raised the conch in her hand and lightly placed them against her lips. She pursed her thin lips slightly before a deep sobbing noise resonated in the air. The sound produced by the conch was meandering and melodious as it spread across the heaven worship platform. The unique tone and tune sounded like something that came from under the sea. It seemed to sing tales from the past in a low but beautiful and bright tone. The tune spread into the forest. Whoosh, 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 birds appeared in the skies. Huge eagles and meek sparrows flew in the air. Meanwhile, the beasts on land slowly crept toward the platform from the forest. Their eyes shone with a dark green light. This was the sign of a being attaining the basic level of cultivation. The wild beasts absorbed the primal chi of heaven and earth and became tougher, scarier, and more savage. Powerful vicious beasts were the enemies of mankind. The conk's sound stunned the masses. When they regained their senses, they began to clamor again. Demon Lady! Demon Lady! At this moment, Zhang Renyi, the Taishu Academy's first disciple, pushed away from the stone floor and flew at lightning speed toward Miss Conk. Bam! The Hengchu branch's Zhang Can followed suit. He was not inferior to Zhang Renyi in terms of speed. Energy stirred and landed on Zhang Yiren as he said, "Let's decide who's worthy with our fists." You took the words right out of my mouth. Both of them were covered in spheres of energy. After the initial collision, they faced each other in the air. The disciples of the Taishu Academy charged forward as the disciples of the Hengchu branch drew their swords and advanced as well. Chaos descended on the scene. Upon seeing this, Hua Chongyang glanced at Lu Zhou briefly. He did not hesitate to make a move. With the two tigers fighting, he could easily gain the benefit as the third party. His movements were as nimble as a swallow as he kept the energy at bay. "Follow me," a surprise expression on Miss Kong's face as she took a step backward. At the moment she stepped back, several energy swords sailed toward her. Hua Chongyang struck with one hand. A huge energy seal shattered the energy swords. Then, he pulled Miss Kong to him with the energy. After retracting the energy palm, Miss Kong was pulled in by the energy palm. "Don't let him get away." DMNIT. Zhang Can and Zhang Renyi had discovered Hua Chongyang. The duo stopped fighting immediately as though they had a tacit agreement as they flew toward Hua Chongyang. A palm and a sword. From the left and right. Hua Chongyang shouted, "Get lost." Whiz! An avatar that was nearly 90 feet tall suddenly appeared with an explosion. The shining golden energy pushed Zhang Can and Zhang Renyi back. The two of them reeled back as they spat out mouthfuls of blood up in the sky. The disciples of the Hengchu branch and Taishu Academy looked at the avatar that was nearly 90 feet tall in shock. "A 7-leaf elite. He's a 7-leaf elite?" Lu Zhou looked at Hua Chongyang, the 7-leaf elite. His expression remained calm. When Hua Chongyang summoned his 7-leaf avatar, he did not even spare a glance for Zhang Can or Zhang Renyi. His attention had always been on Lu Zhou. Of all the people gathered here, he surmised Lu Zhou was most likely to pose a threat to him here. Zhang Can and Zhang Renyi endured the pain in their bodies as they hovered in the sky. "Disciples, hear my order." The disciples of the Taishu Academy and Hengchu branch were well trained. They retreated at the same time and formed square formations. "Prepare the formation." The disciples of the Taishu Academy produced talismans from their pockets. The disciples of the Hengchu branch bit the tips of their thumbs and swiped it across their swords. The talismans were ignited, the energy blades shone. Script seals appeared and formed a huge script seal grand formation. Hua Chongyang did not expect them to work together harmoniously. He retracted his palm after he brought Miss Kong to him. As he had expected, she was not a cultivator. When she was bound by his energy, she was completely helpless. "You won't get away," Zhang Can shouted. The disciples of the Hengchu branch flew on their swords. The densely packed energy swords shot out in rapid succession. Hua Chongyang recalled his avatar and descended. "Let's go." Logically, this was the best chance he had to run away. His mission was to retrieve Miss Conk. He was a 7-leaf elite, after all. There was no need for him to fight if it was not necessary. The moment Hua Chongyang flew away from the heaven worship platform, a black figure shot after him from the back. There was no energy or avatar as though the figure was using his body as a weapon. The figure punched Hua Chongyang with golden energy seals swirling around his fist. Hua Chongyang's expression darkened as he blocked using his arms. At the same time, an energy seal shield appeared around him as he defended against the Taishu Academy's script seals and the Hengchu branch's sword formation. Bam! 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 He could defend himself against the attacks of the two sects, but the sudden appearance of the golden energy fist exceeded his expectations. Boom! It was too fast. The fist connected firmly with Hua Chongyang's arms. The strong impact caused him to grunt as he fell. He fought against his surging blood essence and pushed with his palm. There was only one person he could rely on at this moment. "Elder Lu, help me." The moment the black figure appeared, Hua Chongyang knew his mission today would not be that easy. He was sent flying rather far back on the ground. The limestone floor left in his wake seemed to have been removed. It took a while before he finally slid to a stop. He punched on the ground and flipped 360 degrees in the air before he stood on his feet. Then, he sent Miss Conk over to Lu Zhou with a palm strike. Miss Conk looked up with her huge eyes. For the first time, she smiled and greeted someone. "Hello." Lu Zhou looked down into her eyes. Her head only reached his shoulders. It was said that eyes were the windows to a person's soul. He only saw innocence and purity in her eyes. She seemed so pure that it was as though she was not even tainted by a speck of dust. Miss Conk's greeting seemed to catch the black figure off guard. It came to a halt and looked over. The black figure belonged to a middle-aged man who wore full armor. A blade scar could be seen on his face. Based on his armor, it seemed like was a soldier from the Jing province city's garrison. Hello, Lu Zhou replied to Miss Conk. What's your name? I'm Lu Zhou. What about you? Lu Zhou asked with a smile. I. Miss Conk could not seem to remember her name. Her brows were furrowed as she struggled to remember her name. Luo. Lu Zhou looked at the conch in her hand. Come here. Oh, Miss Conk moved to Lu Zhou's side. She was as obedient as a granddaughter. The others were greatly surprised at this. The garrison soldier spoke in a deep voice. Under the orders of the Lord, no one's allowed to use a living person as a sacrifice on the heaven worship platform. I'll be taking this girl with me. In these unique times, those who disobey military orders will be persecuted. Hua Chongyang looked beyond the heaven worship platform. The space 100 meters behind the civilians was already occupied by 1,000 soldiers. They exuded a majestic aura as they looked at the heaven worship platform. Lu Zhou looked at the garrison soldier. This little girl is somehow tied to me by fate. I don't think I can let you take her away. The garrison general's gaze darkened. At this moment, Zhang Renyi, the Taishu Academy's first disciple, descended on the heaven worship platform. Then, he cupped his fists and said, I didn't notice General Ning, the strongest elite under General Wen Shu. Greetings, General Ning. I'm Zhang Can of the Hangzhou branch. Hua Chongyang's heart turned slightly cold. Why is Ning Han here? If they were to fight one-on-one in a righteous manner, Hua Chongyang would be evenly matched with Ning Han. However, the sneak attack from before had caught him off guard and injured him. Ning Han is skilled in melee combat. He was a killing machine on the battlefield. Before they advanced on Jing province, the Nether sect had investigated Wen Shu and his subordinates. Ning Han was one of the noteworthy people who came up in the investigation. He did not expect to meet Ning Han here. An ominous feeling rose in his heart. He could not let his guard down. He shuddered when he thought about what would happen if his real identity was revealed. If a deputy general was this powerful, General Wen Shu, one of the 8 great commanders, definitely would not be a weakling. Back then, the commander of the 3 armies, Wei Zhouyan, rose through the ranks under Li Jingyi's support. He was in control of heavy forces and had a high authority. Even then, he could not even compare to the 8 great commanders. The divine capital was full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It was not a lie. The appearance of General Ning made the members of the Hangzhou branch and the Taishu Academy give up on fighting. If the divine capital wanted this person, they could only step aside. Miss Conk stood at the side as she watched the happenings in her surroundings. Even at this moment, her eyes showed no fear or nervousness, only curiosity could be seen. General Ning looked at Lu Zhou and asked, What did you say? I never repeat myself. Lu Zhou no longer bothered with General Ning. Instead, he looked at Hua Chongyang who was injured and simply said, Let's go. He grabbed Miss Conk's hand, which seemed small in his, as he walked away from the heaven worship platform. Miss Conk asked in confusion, Where to? Wherever you want, Lu Zhou answered in a low voice. The 2 sects and General Ning looked as the old man and the young girl conversed as they walked away. Lu Zhou had just waved his hand, creating a small storm of primal chi when General could no longer hold it in and said, Catch them. With this order, dozens of mounted soldiers at the front lines charged. The warhorse's eyes shone with a dark green light at this moment. It was clear these were not ordinary warhorses. More than 10 warhorses galloped across the land, stirring up clouds of dust. The mounted soldiers were at least in the Brahmin sea realm. The spears in their hands buzzed as they moved forward. Lu Zhou shook his head. He stopped and looked at the warhorses charging at him before he raised his right hand. Miss Conk stopped walking as well. She raised her conch and blew into it softly. A deep and sobbing sound resonated in the air. The sound seemed ordinary, there were no primal chi or offensive sound waves. However, the warhorses seemed to understand her. They came to a halt immediately and raised their front hooves as they neighed. The cultivators' expressions changed immediately. They had tamed these steeds. Why did the steeds go out of control for no reason at all? Meanwhile, the warhorses moved in a frenzy, bucking around to shake the cultivators off their backs. Lu Zhou looked at the warhorses curiously before he shifted his eyes to Miss Conk who was standing next to him. What did you say to them? Freedom. Miss Conk looked up slightly. Meanwhile, Hua Chongyang and General Ning Han were filled with awe. What a terrifying ability. She was capable of swaying the warhorse's loyalty with just a tune. Ning Han, otherwise known as General Ning, stomped his foot on the heaven worship platform and said domineeringly, Those who dare take the demon lady away will be persecuted on the spot. Boom! The heaven worship platform crumbled with a loud crash immediately. Ning Han hovered in midair and ordered, Kill them. The cultivators abandoned their frenzied warhorses and leapt into the air. Lu Zhou looked to the side slightly. Are you afraid? What's afraid? Miss Conk asked. Since she asked this question, it was clear she was not afraid at all. Lu Zhou was already a one-leaf nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivator. These small fries were not even worthy of him using his trump cards. Don't move. Oh, Lu Zhou flipped his palm. The primal chi around him surged. Dozens of horizontal energy swords materialized around him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They shot forward. Boom, boom, boom. The mounted soldiers could not even withstand a single hit before they fell. Only 2 mounted soldiers were left. They carried their comrades' corpses with their 10 worlds avatars and charged toward Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou raised his hand and pushed it forward casually. The 2 soldiers seemed to freeze. Lu Zhou pushed his palm out and a shining golden energy palm shot out. Boom! A small seal of fearlessness. The 2 divine court soldiers reeled back and died. Hua Chongyang's gaze was complicated. Isn't Senior Lu from the Peng Lai sect? Why is he able to use a Buddhist attack? General Ning, who was hovering in midair, was confused as well. When the first wave of cultivators fell, another wave of cultivators took their place. You overestimate your own capabilities. Lu Zhou flipped his palm again. Primal Chi was condensed into energy. The Great Blitz Treasure Seal and the Outer Circle Mystic Seal shot out. The energy palms were unique. Huge shining golden scripts could be seen on the 5 fingers of the palm seal. These moves were too obvious. Those are 2 of the palm seals of the Taoist 9 cuts hand seals. Who's this old man? How can he master the techniques of the Buddhist and Taoist societies at the same time? Boom, boom, boom. Another dozen cultivators lost their lives. Lu Zhou was satisfied with the feeling of not having to rely on his item cards. Although he was not as awe-inspiring as before, it felt more realistic. Ning Han said loudly, "You 2 sects, what are you standing around for? It's time for you to be of service to the imperial court." Having lost much of his men, he intended to make the members of the Taishu Academy and Hengchu branch take on the role of vanguards. Glad to be of service, Zhang Renyi said with a bow. You should leave this to the Hengchu branch. Zhang Can had no intentions of letting the Taishu Academy take all the merits. He waved his hand. The disciples of the Hengchu branch drew their swords. Dozens of swords sailed through the air. The men formed 4 to 5 energy swords each that spun around their swords. Senior Lu, look out. Hua Chongyang warned. As soon as Hua Chongyang finished speaking, the countless densely packed energy swords shot toward Lu Zhou, looking like a long dragon. A sword formation? Lu Zhou glanced at it. His 1,000 years of combat experience and knowledge was put to good use at this moment. Lu Zhou waved his sleeve. Unnamed flew out. He joined his index and middle fingers as he controlled the sword with his chi. Unnamed split into 2 and continued to multiply. Boom, boom, boom. The dragon was slain by Unnamed. The disciples of the Hengchu branch had sour expressions on their faces when they saw this. That weapon, it's a heaven-grade weapon? General Ning continued looking down from above. This could not go on. A one-leaf nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivator could not continue fighting for a long time after all. Lu Zhou thought about the disguise card which could be used to intimidate the others. Alas, a single card costs 10,000 merit points. It was a waste to use it right now. If it weren't for the price, I would have swatted you as though you're flies ages ago. How dare you act pretentious before me? At this moment, Zhang Renyi and Zhang Can flew toward him. A sword and a palm. They moved at lightning speed. How dare you make a scene when you merely have a one-leaf cultivation base? If they could not gauge this old man's cultivation base after fighting for this long, they would have been the laughingstock of the cultivation world. Forget it. Lu Zhou pushed away from the ground and rose into the air. When the sword and the palm were upon him, primal chi surged as he pushed his palms to the sides. A faint bluish glow appeared immediately. With Lu Zhou in the center, a gigantic array of energy swords that spanned 100 meters appeared. The yellow river sword was a gift from the heavens. Impossible. He's not a one-leaf cultivator. Zhang Can and Zhang Renyi were almost upon him when they were greeted by a tidal wave of energy swords. Bam! 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 The energy swords washed over the 2 of them like a tidal wave. They were minced by the energy sword. They did not even have the time to cry out. The energy swords seemed to have eyes of their own. They skirted around Miss Conk and formed an independent safe space. Eldest senior brother, elder, the members of the Taishu Academy and Hengchu branch were stunned. General Ning's gaze turned cold. He stepped into the air that rippled under his feet. With his fists by his side, he launched an attack at Lu Zhou with an overbearing force that was as heavy as a mountain. Lu Zhou was still surrounded by energy swords. The terrifying part was that Ning Han had parted the energy swords with his shining golden fists. My extraordinary power isn't enough? Lu Zhou seemed indifferent. He retracted his arms and placed them before his dantian. The array of energy swords vanished at once. Die! Ning Han, who had been resting all this while, punched Lu Zhou at lightning speed. His body was horizontal in the air as he punched with his right hand. Ning Han had the opportunity to catch his breath. With lightning speed, he hurled a punch at Lu Zhou. His body was horizontal in the air as he punched with his right arm. Bam! This punch connected with Lu Zhou's chest. It hit. Ning Han was feeling pleased with himself. Anyone hit by him would have their bones shattered. Upon seeing his punch had landed true, he hovered in the air. He had seen and felt his fist connecting with Lu Zhou's chest. However, with a second glance, he discovered a layer of blue light surrounding Lu Zhou's body.